Welcome back to the Don Bullock Morning Show. We're excited to have Mr. Thomas Winstead with us this morning. Thomas, my understanding is you were raised on a farm.
Oh, yes.
And you made a break from that, and your career took off. Give us a background about how you started in your career. What was your first
job was teacher coach in the Nash County school systems. So I taught for a half year at Northern Nash and then 2 years at Nash Central on Highway 58 outside of Nashville. And there I progressed from there. I found that education was not something I wanted to do because I spent more time as a disciplinarian than a teacher coach. So then I went to work with DOT. And from there I went to work with an insurance company as a safety loss control specialist. And then somewhere or another down the line I wanted to become a professional garbologist. So I went into waste business.
Well, how about that?
Yes, sir.
Now, talk about your initial days in that waste management, waste industries. Now, when I say waste management, I'm referring to the industry, not to that particular company.
Oh, yes, sir. Well, Waste Industries was a private company founded in the Raleigh area. It started in 1970. Matter of fact, on December 7th, 1970 is when it started. So stayed in business for 48 years as Waste Industries, of course. And then progressed, and then through the years we grew in those 48 years, 11 states from Pennsylvania to Georgia to Mississippi. And most of that territory I worked.
And it started in Raleigh?
Started in Raleigh, yes,
Well,
sir.
how about that?
Yes, sir. And it blossomed there we did collection from door to door to commercial to industries. We operated landfills, transfer stations, what we call MRFs, material recovery facilities that handle recycling. I know a lot of the citizens probably familiar in the county, convenience centers, sites in rural areas where people, instead of having door-to-door collection, they can bring the material and recyclables and trash to the facility, and then we'll take it to a disposal facility.
Well, I've been arguing for some time that municipalities need to privatize those operations and have somebody like Waste Industries take it over.
Right.
As opposed to having that be a business run by a municipality, including Rocky Mount.
Right.
But I guess that's happened over different times, different places?
Oh yeah, especially your smallers where it just the capital outlay for the truck. So like today, if you had to go buy one of the collection vehicles today, you're over $300,000 just for the truck itself.
Wow.
Then you've got to have support network, mechanics, the people in the shop to do that. So it just doesn't stop there when the people see the truck go down the street.
Oh yeah,
picks the trash up. Yeah.
I would assume that the per hour cost of running one of those vehicles is pretty significant.
Yes, sir. At the time you throw in the insurance liability, and then you put the labor, whether it's an automation system, one man only, or you're using a driver plus 1 plus 2 crewmen. So,
well, and the depreciation of the asset too. I mean.
Oh yeah, and it depends on if you do it over 8 years, 10 years, 12 years, depends on that. But all that is governed by how well you maintain the piece of equipment.
Sure.
You know, my daddy always told me on the farm, boy said grease is the cheapest thing you can put in joints and stuff.
I've heard that saying as well.
That's right.
When we talk about, again, the waste management business, not the company.
Yes, sir.
What are the biggest challenges? I know there are many challenges.
Well, the biggest, of course, is disposal facilities. You know, things now, the counties, the local municipalities, you're just hard to site a landfill, for example, and that's where the trash has to go. It's no longer where you used to just dump it in the field and dump it in the hole. Now you've got so many regulations involved because you've got environmental issues now galore. Because one of the biggest things, of course, is the disposal site, where leachate, we call it. That's anytime rainwater touches trash, it becomes leachate. And that's some of the reasons why so many landfills got closed, because local wells in the community got contaminated. Here, and I just use the one in Sampson County around Clinton area, is that every bit of water that's collected on that facility, touches trash or whatever, is collected, and it has to be pumped and transferred to a treatment center and treated, just like you do wastewater coming from the city.
Man, that sounds expensive.
very expensive. If you not only just collect it, you got to have wells and everything else in place to collect it, and it's got to be tested regularly. And the DENR, who's the governing agency of the state of North Carolina, they're regular visitors and should be, you know, because you just can't afford to have a spill or overflow, and again, the contamination of wells. Plus, anytime water hits trash, it decomposes and it creates a methane gas.
Wow.
Over a period of time. It takes over years, 10, 15 years. And one of the things that's important, remember, just when you put trash in the ground, one good component of that, and I use Sampson County as a good example, as well as landfills across the U.S. and abroad, is we put in, this was probably around 2000, we put in 6 generators, and while these wells captured this gas that's from the decomposition of the trash, collected, powers the generators that produce electricity, and all the electricity produced from there supplies the entire town of Roseboro, which is down the road.
Get out of town, really?
From Clinton. So, and plus we sell extra energy to the power company to use where it may be. So, but again, that's another measure of private industry of trying to make a buck, so to speak, in doing that, but also doing the right thing as well.
Well, it's basically Earth Science 101. Anything that decomposes creates gas, right?
Yes, sir. That's correct. And here is you manage it and you control it. So the whole neighborhood, I know right next door is a church. You know, we control the odor, we control the rodents, we control the birds, the seagulls, all, you know, everything that goes along with that complex is controlled and monitored daily. And for example, people who have residential collection, the average person generates in a year's time about 1.1, 1.2 tons of garbage and trash. That's about 2,400 pounds.
Wow.
So just Sampson County alone, that pulls trash from Roanoke Rapids to Wilmington to Raleigh. And they do about 6,500 tons a day. Now, compared to that, that's over 13 million pounds of tons per day, 6 days a week, that goes to that facility.
So that's a lot of methane gas that you're generating as well.
From trash that was or buried 30 years ago to today. What you bury today in 10 years from now will start decomposing. So you got all that's been in the ground for years. You're trying to manage that plus be able to manage what you put in the ground today.
So it's really self-sustaining in terms of the gas.
To some extent, yes, sir. Now, some of it can't be used if it goes through the filtering system, but we're probably handling about 90% of it is being used. Yes, sir.
Well, I guess the concerns about environmental have been really mitigated, is what you're saying.
Yes, sir. To the best of humanly possible, yes, sir.
So the public should not be concerned if there's a landfill that is needed that pops up in general terms in their community.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Meaning?
And one of the things that had started back when the creation of the regional landfills, the one thing to help the host county, they would get a host fee that would help on the tax break. For example, don't hold me to the exact number, but it'll range from, for every ton of trash coming in, the county will get $1.25 per ton. In some cases, it may have an escalator clause in it for the next 10, 12 years. It may go up whatever the CPI is. Let's say next year it's $1.30. Next year it may be $1.50. So it's an income producer for them. But again, the local, the state, and the federal authorities monitor, and it probably is the safest it's ever been of all the regulatory things put in and safety measures. And each measure put in has got a backup measure.
Sure.
To it is in place. So, of course, now Mother Nature can throw you curveballs.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
All along, and that's why those systems are in place.
You have redundancy then.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Well, and I know very little about this industry, but let's suppose that there's a need for a new site.
Mm-hmm.
How are sites determined?
Well, first you have to let it be known to the local governing body, say county commissioners, for example, and kind of test their flavor if they're interested in doing that, okay? And also they get a response from the citizenship. Then from there, if it is, then you go to a certain community that's somewhat less populated, because when you put a landfill in siting, is again, it's going to be a regional capacity. You're going to be bringing from many counties around. And typically a regional landfill from 100 to 125 mile radius is where you'll pull trash from. So you're going, first of all, you're going to get a lot of truck traffic. Example, what I said to you, mentioned to you earlier. Sampson County would have as many as 550 to 700 vehicles a day hauling trash in. That can be the collection trucks on the streets, or the tractor trailers that come from the transfer station hauling 20, 23 tons per load. And those big tractor trailers are dumped by big old tippers that dumps it out. So you have, just like grain elevators, you ever seen the trucks being dumped? It dumps the whole, the driver gets out of the vehicle and it dumps the whole truck out. It comes back down, does it in about 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. So you got a water truck traffic coming in. So that's one of the things you look for environmental studies. And so now DOT's got to be involved as a road capable of handling all those heavy loads, you know, coming into facilities, plus noise now. You don't want to be going through a heavy populated area, especially not being around a school, you know, anything of heavy population. So there's a checklist that you have to go through.
It sounds incredible how many things have to be dealt with to do that.
Oh yeah, there's a book probably, I call it a play manual. It's probably a 1/2 inch thick of checkoffs that even before you get to the point of going to see the landowners.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Now when a landfill is built, there are certain types of soil that have to be brought in, is that right?
That's correct. Now, all the landfills now, with another part of the safety features, is used to you just dig a hole and every day you put a cover material on it. Now you go in and first of all and put at least a 2-foot base of clay all the way around the bottom. Then you've got a liner that's sewed together inside. On top of that, before the first trash and dirt's put in it, that liner's anywhere from 12 to 18 inches thick. And there it has pipes that pumps the water that comes through the trash. And that water again is pulled from the bottom, and it goes through a system in storage tanks and collect, and then we pump it or carry it to a facility to be treated. So now that's the groundwork that's got to be done.
So you spent millions of dollars just
before you take the first ton of trash. Plus you got to have pits that you have to cover it with 6 inches material every day, either 6 inches of topsoil, or you have to put a liner that you filter like a big tarp, you put over top of the trash that you've collected that day, or some type of what they call pearl material that keeps it in place so it doesn't blow away, and also because seagulls will show up from anywhere.
Yeah, I've seen those patterns of seagulls. You wonder how in the heck they found Rocky Mount, as an example. I see them in the parking lots occasionally. I'm going, are you lost? Are you kidding me? Do you not know that you belong at the coast? And I see these seagulls flying around. I'm like, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, seagulls, and another one is geese.
Yeah.
See quite a few of those.
So every day you have to cover.
At the end of the day.
Now, how deep is this pit to begin with?
It depends on the water table. That's the biggest obstacle you have to understand, and that all comes with engineering every step of the way. And I'm just throwing an example. Let's say you can go 40 feet in the ground, okay, and that's it. But what today's under new permitting laws, state of North Carolina as well as federal, you can go up to as high as 300 feet above sea level. So what you do is you're actually creating great big mounds up, and that's why you see in some of the pictures how it goes up in a great big hill aspect. And so you go by different sales. You get approved for a certain sale and you put one here. It's like building blocks. You build what you're doing here, and you come in over here and you build this for yourself. And then you go put attachment on that. So all of a sudden now you got a good base. So you start working your way up and go around till it gets to your permitted level. And then you got what they call a post closure. And that is after you cannot no longer use that cell and put any more trash on it, you have to entomb it, cover it up with a cover to shed all the water off of it, and there it must be ready for at least 30 years or longer. So money is set aside so that it's not an expense to the taxpayers. So whoever owns it has to have money set aside, and we call it escrow. And there, so if something does happen in the term, and that money is controlled by the governing body, whether it be the county or the state. So if something does happen, that money is readily available to be used on it.
You know, my experience is so minimal with this. It sounds very similar to what you have to do to pull a kerosene tank out of the ground in a
Underground
somebody's
storage tank.
backyard.
That's right.
All this stuff you have to mitigate and so forth and so on. Very, very expensive. I can only imagine the cost of opening up one side of a landfill.
Oh yeah. Well, and again, like I said, it's an everyday expense, but then it never goes away, that responsibility, once you have it sited. So, and don't get me wrong, John, it was needed. Some of the old landfills,
sure.
way back, that was unmonitored.
Just dump it.
It just dump it, so there's no telling. And just now we monitor everything that goes to that landfill. It's got a radioactive detector sitting out front. It picks it up if a vehicle tries to bring something in. Anything that's what we call hazardous material has to be identified and placarded and goes through certain tests, and some of that will not be taken. The normal landfills only take what we call just unhazardous solid waste. Other special waste goes to other special sites, and the nearest one I know of is somewhere in South Carolina.
So that's why it's important not to throw old batteries into your garbage can and smoke detectors, which are radioactive. I guess you probably pick up all kinds of
Yes,
stuff
sir.
that you can't accept.
Yes. Well, and a lot of time now, people, if they don't put it in their household solid waste, the recyclables that they put out, people put things in there, because now recyclables are handled two ways. Once you collect it from whether it be a commercial business or residential, it goes through one or two things, a manual picking process. You know, you come dump it out on the
conveyor
table,
belts.
big conveyor belts, and you got people on each side that are going through, hand picking, selecting, and then anything that's cannot be recyclable goes off what we call a residue line at the very end. Then the other thing was we have natural MRFs, ones happen to be in Wilson, where it takes all recyclables and we bale it. We separate the cardboard, the plastics, the newspaper, the aluminum cans, and all that is put in large bales. And then, of course, it's shipped to different processors for recycling as well. And there again, that's another check and balance system put in place. We know each time a load comes in, it's manifest. So we know that truck comes in, where that truck or vehicle, but not say a truck, but
Sure.
a vehicle come in. And so if there is something noted, it goes back to the generator to where it got from. And they say, well, we don't know, then we'll go back to every customer that it serviced and to try to find the point of origin.
Wow.
So
Wow.
we're not policemen, we're not policemen, but that's another check and balance.
Well, you have to police what you're doing.
Yes, sir, that's
Yeah.
correct. You have to take the responsibility.
Well, the radioactive thing is impressive too. I was serving a church in Morehead City area, and one of my church members had a procedure done in Wilmington, and which involved radioactive dye being injected in. He came through the military base, shortcutting to go back to Morehead, and his car was pulled because they detected radioactivity. And you think how small that was.
Oh,
So
yeah.
there's technology out there that can really isolate radioactivity, which is what you're doing.
That's right, that's right. But that's done at the entrance going into the disposal facilities. The detectors are set up, and a lot of times people that it is detected honestly didn't know they had it.
Right.
And then some purposely was trying to get rid of it.
Get rid of it.
Yes, sir.
Wow. So, yes, I'm stunned with all I'm hearing. I mean, I had no idea. I'm guessing that we need to have you back for another hour
Well,
I need to schedule you for my Monday night show and get you in here for an hour to talk about some of this, because it's fascinating to me. I've learned a lot today.
well, we can arrange to do that. I need something else to do since since I've retired trying to help my son doing his mulching business. I'd be glad to take a break.
Well, we haven't even gotten to that yet, the mulching business.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah.
Now, apparently you're clearing some lots and doing stump removal and different stuff like that as well?
Yeah, it's a mulching machine. What it does is one specialized machine. What it does is it goes through and removes, or it actually grinds down unwanted trees, unwanted undergrowth, vegetation, and it's one simple process, and all it does is leaves mulch out there. And after it's done, you can walk over it and drive over it, no problems. And it's not invasive like you would bring bulldozers and excavators in, where it scratches up the dirt and skins it, so to speak. Plus you got aftermath, and you don't have to worry about permitting like this. It's a one-step process. And we've done, or he's done, pasture lands from clearing to restoration, cleared right-of-ways, made a lot of trails for people to ride horses on, even people, hunting land improvements.
Oh, wow.
But the biggest thing you see is now people have set aside land for raising timber, and so you can go in there and thin all that underbrush out without disturbing anything. You eliminate your molds, your funguses, and all your undergrowth, and it just looks better.
Yeah.
People riding up down the road. So,
Like I said, Thomas, I'm blown away.
Yeah.
I had no idea how complex this whole industry is.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we just scratched the surface.
yep, yes, sir. Yeah, if you can get down to the real dirt on the ground on a lot of other aspects of it. So, and a lot of people don't know where it goes.
Yeah.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Well, I was saying before we came on the air that I was aware of a golf course built on a landfill up in Michigan somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
And apparently it's a world-class operation.
Oh, yes.
And, it's just fascinating to me to hear, what all. And I guess, the days of that situation in New York, where the canal place, where all those homes were destroyed basically by underground water and
Fresh
runoff.
kill area.
Yeah, that those days hopefully are over.
Yeah, and again, that's one of a few that really started all the big changes in the late 70s, early 80s. You mentioned the golf course. A lot of the old landfills and the new ones, once they're completed under that post-closure, they're actually putting playgrounds
Yeah.
there. So you got kids and families going out there in those areas, and then you got acres of that area, and it's used for other things too. I know some of them has put tennis courts out, basketball courts, and the playground equipment. So hopefully that's a signal to everybody that's pretty safe.
Yeah.
And there's things in place that made it for that to take place. And the area that these facilities are on, that trash is way down. It's not sitting right on top. You're not going to stump your toe hitting a piece of trash, something like that. So.
Well, I've seen so much of that. I was raised in Tarboro, and we'd go out and hunt in the different farmlands, and you scratch around to dig a little something, and you find the old beer cans.
Oh, yeah.
You find all kinds of.
Yeah.
You bump into a landfill that was on a farm.
That's right.
And I've seen that firsthand and personal. But Thomas, we're out of time for this segment.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you so much for coming in.
Yes, sir. I appreciate the invitation.
I hope you'll come back, and I'll get you scheduled on my Monday night show when we can do that.
Yes, sir. Thank you for
And
having me.
we'll be back with more on the Don Bullock Morning Show after this break.